We are going to be breaking down every fighter subclass in D&D to find out which one is the best. Of course, any subclass can be great. If it offers a playstyle you really enjoy or it really fits your roleplay, that's awesome. But for this list, we're only going to be looking at mechanics. I'll give my breakdown and then of course look at the community ranking given by the great Council of the Kraken on Patreon, who voted on the placement of every subclass and also for this video. Okay, let's go. So, Arcane Archers are all about magic arrows. Think Hawkeye, but with magic. They get this ability called Arcane Shot, where once per turn when you fire an arrow, you can infuse it with magic. There are a bunch of different ones, and they sort of behave like Sorcerer's meta magic, where you choose 2 at level 3, and then you pick up more as you go through the game. They do stuff like banishing or blinding a target for a turn on a failed save, or honing in on a target so it can't miss. It's magic arrow stuff, it's cool. However, they have 2 downsides. Firstly, you only get to use this awesome feature that the entire subclass is based around twice per short rest, which just is not enough. Then the saving throw for these effects is based on your intelligence, and fighters usually aren't the big brain boys. A typical Arcane Archer will maybe have like a 14 in intelligence for most of the game, which means your spell save DC isn't going to be that high. That means enemies are going to be passing saving throws against your magical effects a lot. Plus, you need to give up some of your ability score increases to actually take the good archery feats, right? Like Sharpshooter and Crossbow Expert, because these are basically mandatory on a good archery build, so there isn't much room to bump your intelligence. Now, the 7th level feature, Curving Arrow, is badass, but it's not enough to save Arcane Archers, who ironically aren't the best fighter subclass to be if you want to be an archer. Maybe if you're like crazy rich in real life and you want to roleplay a subclass that has no resources at all, for a change, this could be pretty good. Okay, I'm exaggerating a bit. I do really like this subclass, but I'm putting them all the way down in low C tier. Yes, the Arcane Shots are badass, yes, Curving Shot is badass, and you do get that extra ability score at level 6 to maybe pump intelligence. And the Council of the Kraken agrees. Most people went C tier, a few people went B, but B is really for fighter subclasses that have some kind of niche, and I just feel that Arcane Archers don't get enough shots to have a niche, because 90% of the time, you're just a vanilla fighter. I mean, just compare them to Battle Masters, right? So Battle Master's whole thing is combat maneuvers. These are special moves that use a superiority dice as a resource to enhance an action. Plus they have cool names you can scream like an anime character when you do them. Example, Feigning Attack is a maneuver where you use a bonus action to give yourself advantage on your next attack roll, and on a hit, you add your D8 superiority dice to the damage dealt. Battle Masters start off with 4 superiority dice, that is 4 maneuvers they can pull per short rest. And you get more across the game, and your saving throw DC for these maneuvers is based on strength or dex. That means, unlike Arcane Archers, Battle Masters find it really easy to pump that saving throw to the max, because you're just increasing the stat you would anyway as a fighter. And then your superiority die increases from a D8 to a D12 across the game, making your maneuvers just better as you grow in levels. And if you want more maneuvers, you can always take the Martial Adept feat or the Superior Technique Fighting Style, giving you extra combat maneuvers and extra superiority dice. Hard S tier for these guys, and the Council of the Kraken agrees. 61% of people voting for S tier, which is the most decisive vote on this entire tier list. A couple of people put them as low as B tier, which is like, damn, I'd hate to have to try and please you in bed, but no one went lower than B. Basically, everyone agrees these guys are great. Just a quick note though, Battle Masters are one of the more complicated fighter subclasses, so for very new players, there's a lot to kind of work your way through with the dozens of different maneuvers to choose from. But in terms of combo potential and raw power, they're one of the best martial characters in the game, not even just among the fighters. But there is one fighter that is arguably as good or even better, but we'll get to them when we get there. Cavalier. Look, I like horses, I'll go there, I'll put that on my permanent record. I think horses are pretty cool. But I'm gonna be real with you. Cavaliers, despite supposedly being all about horses, don't really have much to do with mounted combat at all. What they are really about is being the best defensive subclass. At 3rd level you get Unwavering Mark, which lets you every turn force a creature within 5 feet of you to have disadvantage on all attack rolls against any creature but you. Then if that creature does hit anyone but you, you can make a special bonus action attack against them on your next turn with advantage, and on a hit you deal extra damage equal to half your fighter level. Basically they have to deal with you, otherwise they're gonna get completely wrecked. Gotta give a shout out to multiclassing Cavalier with 1 to 3 levels of Barbarian to just become the most disgustingly powerful tanky build. It's outrageous. If your dream is just to reduce every fight to a 1v1 game of slaps between you and a Frost Giant, these guys are the subclass for you. They get other great abilities to help with defending too. They get the Sentinel feat for free as a class feature, which is a great feat, stops people running away. And then they can use their reaction to add a d8 to either their own or an ally within 5 feet's AC against an attack. Then there's some high level abilities like knocking enemies prone or making extra opportunity attacks. Anyway, so obviously all these abilities do help protect your mount in combat, but you don't need a mount at all for the Cavalier to be good. It's just kind of a byproduct of the abilities that they also work well mounted. If the rest of your party is squishy but dangerous, like a squad of jellyfish, Cavalier fighters will keep them alive long enough to kill things. So I'm putting them in B tier. Also, these guys divided the Council of the Kraken. Like, people went crazy ranking these guys. Lots of Ds, Bs, and As. I think people who put them in D did so because they kind of fail at what they promise. If you take a subclass like Cavalier because you think it's going to be all about mounted combat and it doesn't really do anything specifically for mounted combat apart from making it a little harder for you to be knocked off your horse, that kind of sucks. But still, if you look beyond that, you'll find a really strong supportive subclass, even if it is a bit of a flavor fail.
Before you stands the galvanized prowler. It's more bared and bloody. I cast lightning bolt. It does nothing. Dominate monster. No effect.
I cast gun. Wait, hold up. I shoot it in the face. Nat 20. Oh, fuck, that was actually a nat 20.
How did you get the gun?
Level 3 Warlock. I call up Cthulhu, he's like,
yo, do you want a familiar?
And I'm like, nah, just a fucking gun. Okay, he's beaten. How do you want to do this?
I just lean in and say, the hunt is over, bitch.
The smash hit Kickstarter sensation Steinhardt's Guide to the Eldritch Hunt has already passed $1 million pledged. Get the Pact of the Trigger Pact boon for Warlocks, rule the Knights with the Eldritch Hunt Paladin subclass, or destroy your enemies with the deadly new magic of Osteomancy. There's only 2 weeks left to get your copy, so back Steinhardt's Guide on Kickstarter today. Link in description.
Champion, the most popular subclass in the game, and also the most divisive. Let me just show you the Council of the Kraken votes here. So a relatively even spread all the way from S tier to D tier. So how does that happen? So champion fighters are the pumpkin spice latte of D&D. They're really popular, they're actually pretty good, but honey, they are so basic. That makes them great for beginners because the abilities are super simple. But there is a line between simple and boring. They have improved criticals, so they score a critical hit on a 19 or a 20, and from level 15 they crit on an 18 through 20. They can add half their proficiency bonus to any strength, dex, or con check that doesn't already have their proficiency bonus, and they get an extra fighting style at level 10. Then at level 18, every turn they regain about 10 hit points if they're below half hit points. And that's it. That's not me, cutting stuff out to summarize. That is everything this subclass does. I'm putting them in low B tier because they do have that niche as a crit fisher build. Like, combo these guys with 2 levels of Barbarian, and at champion level 5 you have a 46% chance to crit every turn. At champion level 15 that goes up to a 72% chance to crit every turn before you action surge. But honestly, aside from that niche, which can be fun, it's kind of like you're not even playing with a subclass when you play these guys. Echo Knight Fighters. Noob Cybot, the class. So Echo Knights can essentially summon a clone of themselves, allowing them to be in 2 places at once. You manifest this shadow version of you, and you can attack from its location as well as your own. It can also move up to 30 feet in any direction, which means it can fly, because up is a direction, and you can swap places with it at the cost of 15 foot of movement, so it's essentially a kind of teleport. The big bonus is that you can make make an extra attack through it on your turn, a number of times per long rest equal to your Constitution modifier. You're a fighter, right? The more attacks you get, the better. Then it sort of gets crazy, because at 7th level, you can send the Echo up to 1,000 feet away to scout out a location, and then teleport right there. But also, you can still attack through it while you send it off like this. So you can be cowering behind full cover 1,000 feet away, like a hero, while your Echo Knight just rains down arrows on enemies. It's a really great assassination tactic, Stannis Baratheon style. Check with your DM before you do this, obviously. Just remember that your Echo does only have 1 hit point, so don't expect it to last too long. They also get Shadow Martyr, which lets you teleport your Echo in front of someone who's just about to get hit by an attack, and let the Shadow take the attack instead. Useful emergency protection effect, especially against critical hits. So the Council of the Kraken slammed these guys right up in S tier, and honestly, I think I agree. The utility of having an extra body or 2 extra bodies at level 18 is just insane for battlefield control. Especially with the Sentinel feat, you can position your clones strategically to lock down other creatures' movements via opportunity attacks. There's loads of room for creativity, they can protect your allies, you even get temporary hit points when your Echo dies, they really just do it all. Eldritch Knight, the Magic Swordsman, basically a wizard fighter multiclass rolled into one subclass. Some spells are just incredible on fighters, right? Like Shield for extra AC, Booming Blade for extra damage, Find Familiar for just being awesome. However, Eldritch Knights do face a problem of competition. Trying to squeeze magic into a martial class is a lot harder than just trying to squeeze a little bit of melee attacks into a spellcaster class. So Hexblades, Swords Bards, Blade Singers, they've all kind of power crept Eldritch Knights since their release. Blade Singers have better AC, better damage output, and more utility, but Eldritch Knights are way tankier and way less resource dependent. Another downside is that your spell save DC, like the Arcane Archer, is based on your intelligence. But if you take spells that don't actually use your spell save DC, like a Booming Blade or Shield, it's not really that much of a problem. Adding spells to any class pretty much just makes them better, and I personally kind of need a bit of magic in my D&D. Magic is just too fun and too interesting to not take on some level, so if you're like me, this is a great subclass. I agree with the Council of the Kraken on this one, I'm putting them at high B tier. It's a lot of fun, magic is inherently powerful, but it's not the most optimal build for a fighter. In fact, I'm putting them below Cavalier. Psy Warriors, aka Jedi. These guys are just Jedi. They're not technically magical fighters, but in terms of flavor, that is 100% what they are. They're just a different flavor. So Psy Warriors get psionic dice to fuel their power, and they get 2 times their proficiency bonus per long rest, which is at least a little bit more than the Arcane Archer. They do some cool things like force push, force pull, force jump, or deal extra force damage on a hit. The Jedi analogy really is not subtle. Some later abilities include an immunity to psychic damage, being able to end the charmed or frightened condition on yourself, which is actually really quite good, and being able to give everyone in the party a +2 to their AC for 1 minute. So in a sense, these guys are quite similar to Battle Masters and Eldritch Knights, but you don't get to choose your spells or your maneuvers, you just get the things that the subclass gives you. That makes them way easier for beginners because there's less decisions to worry about, but you still get some stuff to play around with tactically in combat. The downside is none of their abilities are going to radically change the course of a battle like a really well-placed spell might. It's usually smaller stuff, like a little extra damage or a big leap to get into melee range. Jedi get a B. And the Council and I agree on this one. It's a low B, it's actually quite close to being a C in terms of votes, but I do think the Jedi flavor and the fact they're so easy to use just push them over the edge. If you want to play a Jedi, or you want to play a magic fighter without any of the complexity, these guys are the choice. Purple Dragon Knight Fighters. Okay, so PDK are tricky. For a start, they're called Purple Dragon Knight Fighters, which is badass. Their whole idea is kind of like being a support fighter, where they share their abilities with the rest of the group when they do them. Example, they can heal up 3 allies within 60 feet by an amount of hit points equal to their fighter level when they use their second wind feature, which is actually a really good healing ability for a bonus action. Then at level 10, when they action surge, they can give another creature within 60 feet a reaction melee weapon attack, which is just amazing when you combine it with rogues, potentially letting them get off another sneak attack on your turn. Then at level 15, when they use Indomitable Will, another creature within 60 feet can also re-roll a failed save against a Wisdom, Intelligence, or Charisma-based effect. So basically, they're giving their allies a little bonus when they use their baseline fighter abilities. They also get Expertise in Persuasion, arguably the third best skill in the game. Although fighters don't usually have that much charisma, expertise does go a long way. So if you want to seduce dragons, but you don't want to learn how to play an instrument, this is probably the best class to do that with. PDK fighters honestly get a really bad rep, and it's because none of their abilities directly help themselves be a better fighter. Kind of like the champion fighter, you're stuck playing with just the baseline fighter abilities 90% of the time. It's kind of like you don't have a subclass. Also, although it is great to be a fighter that can heal and can boost saving throws and has a little bit of charisma, there's actually a whole class that does this way better, and it's actually one of the best classes in the game, Paladin. So because of that, I'm giving Purple Dragon Knights a C. They're not actively awful, they're not 2004 Guns N' Roses bad, they're not D tier. But I just can't see a niche where they're not outclassed, either by a different fighter subclass or by a paladin. The Council of the Kraken was split on this one between C and D, but you really have to suck to be a D tier subclass in my opinion. And PDK, they don't suck, okay? They're just not as good as the other options. Alright, Roon Knight fighters are another spin on the magic fighter subclass. They power themselves up with runes, and each rune gives you a permanent advantage on a skill check and then a one-off buff effect that recharges on a short rest. Example, the Frost rune gives you advantage on all intimidation and animal handling checks, and then as a bonus action you can invoke it to gain a +2 to all skill checks and saving throws based on constitution for 1 minute. But the big feature here is Giant Might. As a bonus action, you become large, you gain advantage on strength checks and strength saving throws, and once per turn, your weapon attack deals an extra 1d6 damage. If being a big fighter boy sounds fun, you're right, it is. And the runes you can get give some cool abilities like charming people or getting extra damage or getting damage resistances, it's all good stuff. Roon Knights are the closest fighter subclass to barbarians, often getting similar benefits to raging when they use their runes. They also get some support options, like at 7th level they get Runic Shield, which is kind of like the lucky feat, and you can force an enemy to re-roll an attack roll against one of your allies. You basically just save that for any time anyone gets crits, you can say, no you don't, and the enemy has to re-roll that dice and probably won't crit again. Plus, at 18th level, you can grow to huge-sized and suplex the Tarrasque, which is pretty cool. I'm putting them at a very solid A. Extra damage, extra tankiness, and some small support. They basically do everything fighters do already and make it better. Okay, we're here. We have Samurai. These guys are all about big, reliable damage, and they have the Optimizer's dream ability, Fighting Spirit. Bonus action, advantage on all attacks that turn. Samurai are the gods of going Nova. The idea is to give yourself advantage on everything, action surge, and just speed blitz everything, dealing insane damage in one turn. Remember when I said Arcane Archers weren't the best archers? That's because Samurai, with their advantage on every attack roll, pair disgustingly well with the Sharpshooter feat. This bad boy gives you an extra 10 damage per hit at the cost of taking a -5 to your ranged attack roll. However, when you're rolling with advantage, that basically mitigates that -5, so it's kind of free. At level 5, you can throw out 4 shots at advantage that deal 1d8 plus 15 damage each. That is crazy. But anyway, Samurai also get other cool things, like bonuses to persuasion checks equal to their wisdom modifier and proficiency in wisdom saving throws. Wisdom saves suck. Spells like Hold Person and Dominate Monster can just end a fight, so being able to resist them is really good. Also, their final ability, Strength Beyond Death, is just insane. It basically gives you an extra turn when you fall to 0 hit points. So you just throw everything into this final last-ditch action surge, 9 attacks in 1 turn mega hit before falling unconscious. It's super heroic. So they're cool, but how good are they really? because the Council of the Kraken is divided on these guys. We got an even split across S, A, and B tiers, and I think it comes down to how much do you value the feats Sharpshooter and Great Weapon Master. Without those feats, advantage on all attacks, it's not the biggest of deals. It's nice, but it's not crazy. But with those feats, with that extra 10 damage per hit, advantage is just insane. So good that I think they deserve a spot in low S tier. If fighters are supposed to be the most skilled warriors that are so talented they can keep up with god-level magic in terms of damage, well, Samurai is pretty much the only fighter that can reliably do that. They can actually match the damage output of a Meteor Swarm. But of course, let me know what you think. If you want to vote on the videos that get made on the channel and also be a part of the discussion on where we rank classes and races in tier lists like this, you can join the Council of the Kraken on Patreon. Of course, you get all the bonus videos on there too, and the D&D magazine with all the awesome content every month. Anyways, check that out, link below or also up here. It really does make a difference when videos get demonetized like the D&D trailer reaction did. Patreon is what keeps me safe, essentially. Of course, only support if you do have the spare $5 every month. Take care of yourself first before supporting anybody on YouTube. Remember to like and subscribe, check out other videos on the channel, and I'll see you next time.